Hello all, and thank you for tuning in today. Today we're going to be talking about how to divide. Now, with division involves working with equal groups. Now, the vocabulary or terminology that we will use today will be divisor, dividend, and quotient. Now, the quotient is the answer to a division problem. The dividend is the number that is being divided into. And then we have our divisor, which is the number that you are using to divide. Now, we're going to get more into that a little bit later. So let's jump into this word problem and see if we can solve this. We're going to use illustrations to solve the first problem, okay? All right. Now, a sandwich uses 2 slices of bread. How many sandwiches can you make with 16 slices of bread? So now, we have to stop and think. What are the facts that we already know? Now, we already know that a sandwich uses how many slices? 2. And what is the question asking us? How many sandwiches can you make with 16 slices? So we know right now that the total number that we are working with is 16. So in order to draw a picture to solve the problem, I am going to draw 16 rectangles to represent the slices. Okay? So here we go. Follow along with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay? We have our 16 slices of bread. Question: how many sandwiches can you make with 16 slices? So now we have to go back to what we already know. How many slices of bread do you use to make a sandwich? 2. And remember, with division, you work with equal groups. So we're going to go through and we're going to circle our groups of 2. I'm going to use a different color just so you all can see it. I'm going to use green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now we had 16 slices. We used 2 slices for each sandwich. So that means we have 1 sandwich, 2 sandwiches, 3 sandwiches, 4 sandwiches, 5 sandwiches, 6 sandwiches, 7 sandwiches, and 8 sandwiches. So how many sandwiches can you make with 16 slices of bread? How many can we make? We can make 8 slices. 8 sandwiches. Okay, so now we're going to dive deeper into vocabulary. But first I'm going to show you how to write this problem up. Now, I'm going to put it right here just so you can see. So we had 16 divided by 2 equals 8. Or we're going to have 16 divided by 2 equals 8. So now, let's work on solving a problem that represents this way. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Okay, so let's remember that as we solve this problem. 3 divided by 24. 24 divided by 3. Because remember, the dividend, which is the 24, is the number that is being divided into. 3, which is the divisor, is the number that you're going to use to divide. And then our quotient is our answer. Now, let's look at this number. We need to know how many times can 3 go into 24. Now, in order for us to do this, we have to use our multiplication facts. So how many times can 3 go into 24? First step, we're dividing. And if we do our skip counting, let's see. We have 3, what comes next? 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. So, how many times can 3 go into 24? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, the next step is to multiply. So, we just divided. We just found out how many times 3 can go into 24. So, first step in division is to divide. Next step is to multiply. So we said 3 goes into 24 8 times. So now we're going to multiply 3 times 8. 3 times 8 is 24. Next step is to subtract. So we have divide, we just multiplied, and now we need to subtract. So we have 4 from 4 is 0. 2 from 2 is 0. So with this problem, we're stopping at divide, multiply, subtract. So we divided. How many times can 3 go into 24? In order to do that, we skip counted 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, and 24. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. So 3 times 8 equals 24. Our next step was to subtract. So when we subtracted, 4 from 4 was 0. 2 from 2 was 0. So our answer or quotient to our division problem is 8. Now, we're going to try another problem. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Okay, so let's remember that as we solve this problem. Okay, so now, our next problem is we have 28 as our dividend, 3 as our divisor, and we need to find the quotient. So that is 28 divided by 3. 28 is the number that's being divided into. 3 is the number that we're going to use to divide. And this is our quotient or answer. We're going to skip count by 3s to see if we can find out how many times 3 go into 28. So let's skip count by 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, and 30. Now, did we see 28? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30. No, we did not. But what we're going to do is find out how many times 3 can go into 28 without going over the number 28. So that means we will not use what number? 30, because it went over 28. So now, that means we're going to use 27. So let's figure out how many times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's 9 times. So 3 goes into 28 9 times. So we just divided. That was our first step. Remember our steps? Divide. Next step is to multiply. So now we're going to multiply. 3 times 9 equals what? 27. Next step after we do this is to subtract. So now we're going to subtract. We have 7 from 8, which is 1. 2 from 2 is 0. Okay, so you're probably like, Now what? Our steps for division. Divide. How many times 3 go into 28? We have 9. Next step is to multiply. So 3 times 9 equals 27. Next step, subtract. 27 from 28 equals 1. And our last step is to bring down. And this means that we're going to see. We got to see if there's a number to bring down. Is there anything right here that we need to bring down? No, there's not. So we have a remainder of 1. So let's try this again. How many times can 3 go into 28? That's division. Dividing. First step. So 3 can go into 28 9 times. We figured that out because we did our skip counting. Now we're going to multiply. 3 times 9 equals 27. Next step, we're going to subtract. So now we're taking 27 away from 28, and we have 1. Next step is to bring down. But there's nothing to bring down. So that means our remainder is 1. That means you have something left over. Because remember, in division, you're working with equal groups. So our equal groups was 9 times 3, which is 27. But we have 1 left over because it's 28. So this is our remainder, which is 1. Okay, here is our next problem. Now, before we get into the next problem, I wrote the steps at the top. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Say it again. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Again, divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. One more time. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Yes, I always put something as a song. It's easy to remember that way. What's the steps for division? I don't know. Wait a minute. What was that little snazzy beat? Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Okay, so let's remember that as we solve this problem. Now we have 22 is going to be divided by 4. Dividend, divisor, answer is the quotient. 22 divided by 4. So now we need to know, first step, how many times can 4 go into 22? Let's skip count. Let's move it down some because we're going to have a problem to solve. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. Why did I stop at 24? Because 24 is larger than 22. So therefore, we know we went over. So we have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and 24. We need to know how many times can 4 go into 22. Now, so if we look here, we're not going to use any numbers that are larger than 22. So we're going to cross out 24. So that means 4 goes into 22 this amount of time. So now we got to figure it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 4 goes into 22 5 times. So we just did our first step, divide. Next step, multiply. 4 times 5 is what? 20. Next step, subtract. Final step, bring down. Is there anything to bring down? No, there is not. So we know that 2 is our remainder. It's our leftovers. Just like when you're eating and you're full and you want to stop and you have something left on your plate, it is leftovers. So that is what 2 is. It is our leftovers, our remainder. So we're going to do a remainder of 2. So now, how many times does 4 go into 22? 5 times with a remainder of 2. Now sing that song for me one more time. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Until next time, hopefully you'll remember to divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down.